Good morning, everyone. It's Charles here from Freedom One. We're excited to have you on this morning's Power Talk. We're going to be taking a look at a very exciting solution that we've developed in-house here at Freedom One, which is the Freedom Won EMS, which has been designed from the ground up to essentially help you optimize the performance and improve your management capabilities of any BESS installation. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce you to this morning's host, being Mike, who is our EMS specialist, who's played an integral part in actually developing our Freedom Won EMS, as well as Han, who's one of our senior engineers from our R&D team. He not only works with the Freedom Won EMS, but our full product portfolio. Before I hand over to them, for those of you that don't know Freedom Won, we are not only the largest, but also the oldest original equipment manufacturer in Africa when it comes to manufacturing lithium iron phosphate batteries. To date, we've built up our capacity significantly to get to a point whereby we're able to produce over 3,000 megawatt hours per annum. We've got 11 unique product ranges, so probably, if not the largest, one of the largest portfolios on offer in the market as it stands. To date, we've manufactured over 150,000 units to date. And we're currently stationed in Longmeadow Business Park in Johannesburg, where we've got a facility that's over 48,000 meters squared. Currently, we've got over 500 employees here at Longmeadow. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Han and Mike, who are going to take you through the full EMS solution. One thing I would like to ask before we get into it is that you save your questions for the end of the presentation. You're more than welcome to pop them in the comments in the meantime, but we will have a full Q&A session at the end of the presentation to answer all of your questions.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Charles, for the introduction. So today we're talking about the EMS, and so basically what it entails is it's a two-part offering. The first aspect is the monitoring cloud platform. This provides visibility to all the devices that's communicating with the EMS on site, and also enables the user to go and view the history as well for certain dates and times to go and see what happened on site. The second aspect is the control aspect. The EMS controls the energy flow in real time on site and allows you to change settings remotely to certain devices on site as well. It's a cloud-based solution, so all the control and monitoring lives in the cloud, so you can access it from anywhere on your PC. And then on site, there's a PC that does the physical communication and control of all the devices. So a few applications where the EMS can be used is commercial and industrial systems, as well as utility scale systems. That's the applications where it starts making the most sense. And then obviously it's used for monitoring and controlling all the power producing devices on site. So just to cover a few differences between the EMS and a standard data logger that's normally included with commercial inverters. A standard data logger allows the user to remotely view certain data points on the inverter itself, and then tracking and trending that data over time, and then in some cases alerts and notifications as well. So what the EMS offers above that is it doesn't only communicate with just an inverter, but several other devices on site, and then tracks and trends the historical data for those as well. It also enables us to remotely program certain devices and change their settings in real time, and it controls the power flow on site where the energy is going as well. We can integrate generator controls into the EMS. We can integrate grid-tied PV inverter control as well. And then other features include energy arbitrage and peak reduction or peak shifting for certain applications. Another selling point is that the EMS is device agnostic. we've integrated with all major brands of inverters and power meters, as well as PV inverters and rectifying transformers. We've also integrated with Freedom Won CAB 1000 hybrid inverter as well.
Thanks for that, Heinz. So, I mean, that's a really neat summary of some of the key differences. So, I mean, at a glance, when you're working with a smart data logger, you're only really monitoring a single, device or piece of equipment. Whereas with an EMS, you now have the ability to monitor multiple pieces of equipment that form part of your base system, but also now control that as well and, implement some really cool functions, whether it be peak shaving, energy arbitrage, etc.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Furthermore, you can also use the EMS as a mobile app on your phone by downloading it as a progressive web app from the EMS Cloud portal. What this enables the user to do is all the functions of the EMS, but on your cell phone. And then also it enables you to have push notifications to your phone if you have alerts set up for certain events. By being a progressive web app, we are compatible with all cell phone platforms such as Android, iOS, and Huawei. All right, I'll be handing over to Mike now to cover a bit of the cloud aspect.
Awesome, thanks, Han. So I just wanted to climb in a little bit here on the cloud aspect of everything. So as Han mentioned, this is a two-part system. There's obviously hardware on site that's doing the control and monitoring of everything, and there's also a full cloud-based aspect. So what's really nice about this is that there's a relatively low infrastructure investment to get the information online. When we compare it to like a SCADA system, putting your own servers down, doing your own hosting. So with the EMS, there's basically no server hosting fees, no databases, no like self-hosting or anything like that. All we require for this thing to function is just an internet connection. And then part of our offering is that we've taken care of the servers, the hosting, the database storages, all of that kind of side of it. Obviously, the reason we want all this data is so that we can get some insights into what's happening on the site. And essentially, we store this data up to 5 years currently in the platform. Right, so when I talk about data that we're storing, I'm talking about like fault codes, historical logging, obviously your data that's coming through historically. We also track all user logs, changes, that kind of thing. So if you do have people that come onto the platform and make changes to your site or do anything like that, at least it's being tracked so we can see what was changed, when it was changed. And then lastly is that if we do lose the internet connection, the actual EMS itself or the PC in the EMS itself does have local backup, and it'll just store the data then locally up until the point where the network comes back. And from there, it'll then re-upload all the data that was missed to the cloud and basically essentially sync with the cloud again after that. Right, so just in terms of compliance and compatibility, we are compatible with, we have all the City of Cape Town compliance, being that SSEG and DNP3 standards. So the EMS system can communicate directly with them and conform to all their standards. And then we also are ICASA compliant for the SIM card based side. Right, and then I just want to talk about, obviously, yes, we're storing your data online, but just to give you a little bit of peace of mind, we do have end-to-end encryption on the system. So that's from the EMS hardware itself all the way through to the cloud. Everything on our side is hosted on Microsoft Azure. So we obviously conform to their safety standards and guidelines. And then we do have two-factor authentication on the system as well, so that we can rest assured we've got secure user logins, so that at least you know that even though you can access your site remotely, that at least it's only you that's able to do so. All right. As I mentioned earlier, there's also a hardware component of this, right? It is mainly a cloud-based solution, or a software solution in general, cloud and local software, to do all the control and the logging. But we also have gone the extra mile here to build a fully integrated panel, if you will, that just makes it nice and easy to install and make sure that everything's as hardy as possible. Right, so this panel, just to go through some of the features, it's an IP65 steel enclosure, powder coated, so we'll know that it's going to last nice and long. The actual brain of the machine itself is an industrial grade PC, with fanless design, so it's nice and durable. There's a 100 gigabyte SSD on the unit as well for local storage. So if you do lose connectivity for any reason, you know that at least you've got a long time to back it up. Then we've gone the extra mile again just to put in some surge protection, just to keep it as safe as possible. And specifically because it's connecting to all of your devices on site, you don't want it being the part that does the damage if we do have a surge. So we make sure that it's protected. And then we do have a battery backup in the actual panel itself to run all the machinery and run all the hardware. And this just really helps, like if your site does go down for any reason, the EMS will still be able to tell you that it's gone down. So even if we do lose power or whatever's going on, we can at least say that, give you a notification to tell you that something's gone south. In this panel now, we've also got network switches so that we can at least keep in control of what's connected, where it's connected. And you don't want people fiddling with network switches and stuff, so at least it's behind the panel door. And then we've also included a 24-volt auxiliary power, which essentially is backed up power from the EMS, so that you can power auxiliary devices, right? So say for interest's sake, you know you need an internet connection on site. If you want to make sure it's always online, you'll then power that internet router through the EMS itself, so that at least if the site does go down, your network and infrastructure is still running at least long enough to get a notification out that there's been a problem on site. All right, so then just to touch on the actual inputs and outputs of the unit, this system supports Modbus TCP and RS485. There's 4 dedicated isolated RS485 ports, right? So that we can split up all the different devices on site, as well as obviously give redundancy to certain devices and have them on their own networks. Like I mentioned, we've got a network switch in there, which supports full Modbus TCP. And then there's 8 digital inputs and 4 digital outputs, right? So these digital inputs are programmable. So whatever you're connecting them to, be that a door contactor, be that a running status, be whatever you want to have on site, a fire suppression system or anything like that, that we can then at least have a programmed, if this goes high, we can then send alerts or show you when doors are open, when they're closed. And then in terms of the output, this is so we can start and stop generators, open and close certain circuit breakers, whatever you really want to use them for, they can be used for. So the idea is that it's a pretty generic panel, that with the help of the EMS software, that it can actually do whatever's needed on site. Okay, then lastly, we do have a whole bunch of third-party integration features, such as an external data provider. So when I say this, what I mean is that there's a locally accessible data provider on the site, like that you can connect to the EMS and pull data locally. And this is for integrating with, say, on-site building management systems or on-site SCADA systems. And then the last part is that obviously once that information's online, if you still want to get that data, we do have an API available that you'll be able to pull our data to any other cloud-based infrastructure, be that for reporting or analytics or that kind of side. All right. Okay, so then what we thought we'd do today as well is just take us through a bit of a demo of what an actual site looks like. So we've reached out to a company called UltraSense, and they've been so kind as to give us permissions to use their site at Drinkworks, which is out there in Irene. And I'm just going to take us through a quick demonstration of what this looks like. All right. So yeah, thank you to UltraSense for letting us demonstrate the site. So this is what we call our custom dashboarding feature on the EMS. Okay, so I'm not going to take us super deep into how we add devices and all that kind of stuff. That is something that can get taken care of in a training session. But I just want to showcase you guys a little bit about what we can see and what we can actually view from the devices in the field. Okay, so as Hein mentioned earlier, this doesn't just connect the inverter to the cloud. This connects everything that's on the site in the power production facility to the internet. Okay, so with that, right off the bat, we've got a really nice little energy flow diagram. Okay, this diagram will actually update on a per second or a per 5-second basis, depending on how fast we can get data from the site, and that'll obviously again depend on the internet connection. But this will essentially almost be real time in terms of updating and showing us where the power is coming from, how much is getting produced, and where the power is going to. Okay, and this can be customized to any site or any layout of site going forward. Okay, we've added some cool features here just of what the grid status is here, whether or not we've got our bypass enabled. So these are coming from digital inputs now. We've then got a basic energy profile, which we can see some kilowatt hours. This is here on the right-hand side. We've got some kilowatt hour data, some grid data, some load data, some generator stuff, our RTF set points, our BESS, and our solar PV production. And again, this can be customized to as advanced as you want it, or obviously as basic as you want it. So you don't have to have all this information if you don't want it, mainly only the information that's important to you. All right, then we've got some tiles here that are just calculating totals. And what's really nice is that this is a complete, I can choose how much data I want to see. So if I just want to see the last 2 days data, I can apply that, and that'll immediately go and fetch the latest data from the cloud platform, and I can see that information. And say for interest sake, I want to actually turn a bunch of this information off, and I only want to see my solar, I can do just that, and I can see, cool, here's my solar production for the day. All right, so what's really nice is that this is quite an excessive site in terms of what it's got on the system. So this site is actually taking care of, it's got 4 PCS 630 inverters, it's got 4 RTF 600s on the site. So there's quite a lot of potential for producing power here. And it's really nice that it's keeping the site completely off grid if it needs to as well. And there's basically zero switchover with the RTF system. Right, so we've made some extra tabs here for this site. So this is just to get a bit of a bigger understanding of the data. So here's just a production and consumption. So now we've put the different power producers on the solar side together, as well as our main. So this is just showcasing all of the power producers on the site. Right, then we've got a bit of a load side as well. We've got 2 separate dBs, so we can see all of our dBs and our totals. And then what's really nice about the EMS is that because it integrates with everything, we can also pull all of our battery information onto this platform as well. So we can see what our cells balancing is looking like. We can see our total discharge and charge capacities. And again, we can track this over the entire lifespan of the site as well. Okay. Then lastly, I'm not going to show us through every tab here, but I am going to get into the environmental monitoring, which actually becomes quite important, especially with these kind of plant rooms that are so big, right? So I could say, cool, I thought there was some heat the other day. I'm going to go and select those, and I can go through here now. I can see all of my temperatures from my different inverters. So these are all the inverters that are on site. Yes, sorry, there's a lot of data on here right now, but we've got a lot of inverters, and I can see that some of these are starting to get a bit hot, but nothing that's out of our parameters. And with our notification service, we can set a threshold that if it does go above that, then we can be notified for it. Okay, and then we've set up different loggings here now for the actual rooms themselves. Right, so we can see different rooms, what they're doing, our solar room, our power room. Okay, that one's not looking. Here's the ambient temperatures coming through. And then finally, we can see our solar inverter temperatures as well. So we can see how they're climbing in the day, and we can essentially start doing trends of how much temperature are we getting versus how much power we're producing, and start and try and optimize the site after that. All right, so that's basically just a quick understanding of a site as an example. And yeah, thanks again to UltraSense for letting us demo this. It's a really impressive site, and it really showcases the capabilities of the energy management system.
Thanks for that, Mike. Yeah, very interesting. And I mean, yeah, I can imagine how, applications like that can help you manage things like I said earlier, like your maximum demand charges and such.
Absolutely.
Harnessing that PV and then utilizing it when you need it most.
Absolutely. Cool. So then I'm going to hand back over to Hein now just to chat about how you actually get your hands on one of these systems. Hein, over to you.
Oh, thanks, Mike, and thanks for the insightful demo. So to purchase an EMS, there's a bit of important paperwork to get over the line before we sell it. So you can contact Freedom Won directly or one of our distributors, and then we'll sit down with you and cover your requirements and basically do a small design review of your drawings of what you're trying to accomplish, so we can make sure that the EMS will fit your needs perfectly. And then based on that, we will quote you based on the requirements after we've done our design review.
Awesome.
All right, then we'll hand over to Charles.
Awesome. Yeah, guys. So thanks for that rundown of the Freedom Won EMS. Definitely something exciting that I think can be a massive benefit to many installers and EPCs, and of course the end users for whom they're installing these systems for. But yeah, before we jump over to the Q&A, just a quick reason as to why one should look to work with Freedom Won. Number one, local engineering. So as I mentioned, everything the likes of the EMS are designed here at Freedom Won. The same goes for our battery technology. So that you have a local partner that is here to listen to you and here to work with you. The same goes with our after-sale support. We've got a tech support team that works closely, obviously, with the disties, but also directly with our larger EPCs or for more complex situations. We're obviously always happy to jump in. In terms of our R&D, not only do we have a strong focus on improving our current product portfolio, for example, the addition of our remote gateway to our Light 2 batteries, but we're also constantly looking out as to what other products do we need to add to the portfolio, what other solutions can meet the needs of our customers. In terms of our network of distributors, we've built up a strong network over the last 10 years, whereby we work with some of the biggest names in the industry that we know can back our product. And then time-tested solutions. So a big thing about Freedom Won is that we've been going since 2010. So we're one of the only manufacturers of batteries that actually have batteries installed in the field that are older than our warranty. So what we're putting on our warranty documents, what we're saying we'll support, is something that's been tried and tested. Now, if you are interested in learning more about the EMS, or perhaps want to get a quotation or see how it can be utilized for one of your projects, you're more than welcome to reach out to one of our distributors, or alternatively, give us a call, send us a mail. We'll be more than happy to assist. Now, lastly, before we jump over to Q&A, I just wanted to let everyone know that we do have an upcoming power talk that's going to focus on the Freedom Won Light 2 commercial batteries. So this is the larger units from our light range, which are now equipped with remote monitoring gateways, which we're going to be touching on the 10th of April. And yeah, with that being said, we're now going to open the floor to take some questions. So as I mentioned earlier, if you have any questions, please pop them in the comments, and then Mike and Hein will definitely jump into to answer those questions.
Awesome. So I just want to, while you guys are thinking about some stuff, actually let's take one for now. Okay, cool. We're just going to go through some of the previous questions that I've had asked in the build up to this event. So the first one is, what can we connect to the EMS at the same time, right? So as I previously mentioned, the EMS has RS-485 and Modbus TCP capabilities, and there is basically no limit to how much you can actually connect to the EMS. So whether you have 10 grid tie inverters or 50 grid tie inverters and 20 gensets in the parallel type system, you can connect whatever you want. There will just be obviously it'll be based on the number of tags as how much the license will then be to get all the infrastructure online. But essentially speaking, you can put down as many network switches and as much infrastructure as you want and connect it to the EMS as long as it has Modbus TCP and RS-485 capabilities. Then the next question we had was, how can I find out what devices are supported on the EMS? So as Hein did mention, we do have support for most major brands of inverters, generator controllers, hybrid systems, DC coupled PV systems, AC coupled PV systems. And all this information can actually be found on the Freedom Won website. Under EMS, you'll see a section there called compatible devices. Or that alternatively, you can go to this link directly on the screen here in front of you. Okay, then another question was, can we receive alerts on mobile devices on the equipments that are being monitored? The answer to that is yes. One, through the mobile app, you can get alerts and notifications via push notification through the mobile app, and there is also email notification capabilities. All right, if you want to expand on that, there is also API integration that will allow you to then push data to wherever you want and then use whatever notification or alerting type package that you're looking for. All right.
Just to add to that, also you can receive SMSs as well on your cell phone.
Okay, then the last one here is just how much data and what speed of an internet connection is required for the EMS to function, right? So because obviously the EMS is an online system, it really needs a decent internet connection on site to make sure that it can read the data through. It can be spotty, right? But in that sense, then your live streaming and where I showed you guys now, the energy flow won't look as nice as you'd like. But if you do have a reasonably stable internet connection, that'll all be pretty solid. But because we've got the local storage, you'll never really lose any data. It'll just be spotty and how often it uploads kind of thing, right? But if you're looking to have a good, clean experience with the EMS, we estimated roughly uses about 30 gigabytes a month. And that'll really depend on how much of the time you're spending live streaming. And by that, I mean, like, are you keeping the dashboard open? How often does it have to read from the device directly? And then we would recommend at least a 1 megabyte per second connection on our side, just to make sure that it's reliable enough and consistent enough to actually go through. Yeah. All right. And I guess we can carry on. If there's any other questions, please let us know.
Cool. While we're waiting for the questions to come through, maybe one from my side, Mike. Obviously, we touched on the sort of process that we use to specify an EMS system. But now, when it comes to the actual installation of an EMS, I understand that it's not as straightforward as like you've got your batteries, you've got your inverters, you've got your EMS, you go and install it all at once. There's a bit of a testing period that needs to happen where the, let's say, battery and inverter system gets commissioned first, and then left to run for a little bit before you guys jump into actually commission the EMS. Can you tell us a bit more about that process?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely right. So inherently, we've tried to make the system as easy as possible and as plug and play as possible. But with the complexities of using these inverters and using these different equipments and different brands, it definitely adds a complexity and a requirement for knowledge of installation of networks and Modbus and that kind of stuff. So it's very important that if you are installing these systems, that you do have at least a decent background on Modbus connectivity, on Ethernet connection. And it's because of that we've actually implemented this. We do have a 7-day, like almost soak test of the EMS on site, that you've installed the system, you've connected all the devices to the cloud, we're starting to get monitoring data, and we need to make sure that that data is consistent and reliable, because otherwise the controls that are pushing the power and creating the power are not going to be able to function properly if we can't get the right communication. So that 7-day period starts when we have all the devices connected to the system. We then like to monitor it for 7 days so we can see that the data is stable and the connectivity is stable. And that's not just to one device. I think this is where a lot of the challenge comes in with the system, is that you're not just connecting an inverter to the system, you're connecting multiple grid tie inverters, multiple generator controllers, multiple power meters, sometimes even of different brands. So it's very important that we get a good stable connection before we do get to a point that we implement the control aspects of the EMS. And that's where that 7-day soak test comes in, is that a lot of the time we'll find that maybe some noise comes in during certain times, or maybe we lose connectivity during certain stages of the site's production, and at least we can use and get through those kind of issues and solve them before it gets to a point where it's down the line and now the system's not functioning because we've lost a network connection.
Fair enough, fair enough. And I see Kobe just added to a comment here on that as well. So over and above establishing that the comms are performing as they should, we've also got an opportunity to sort of set a baseline for performance to see what we're working with, and before we jump into actually optimize that further.
Absolutely, yeah. So we have seen a lot of victory in that as well. Is that establishing that baseline really helps understand just how much we're actually doing here. That once you've set up the controls and the optimization, that you can then see versus what it was beforehand. Because a lot of these sites that we deal with aren't necessarily monitored before we actually put the EMS system down. And then at least it helps us establish that baseline at the same time.
Perfect. And we can also, provide a bit of guidance in terms of network design and such.
Absolutely. Yeah. If there's any questions on that side, like Hans said, obviously in the discussion now, is that we do like to work with people on what their site's going to do. This is a relatively new product in the market, and it's important that obviously each site, because they can be so different, that we at least understand the requirements of each site before just tackling, and it's not just throwing down an EMS, connecting some devices up, and all of a sudden it'll just work perfectly. So yeah, we can definitely assist with network design and general overview.
100%. No, and it's cool to you mentioned that it's obviously something that's in development and we're improving. But what's cool to see is the number of units that are already out in the field. Not just in South Africa, Zim. I know you've got a unit also going through to Antarctica in a bit. So you guys have obviously come a long way already, but nonetheless, we're still building on that.
Absolutely,
that's really cool.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, there's a lot more to learn, a lot more to expand into. There's a really good opportunity here, and especially as the power bills start getting more and more expensive, that we can start using the batteries effectively now. And that is not just about load shedding anymore, but actually about energy optimization.
Correct.
Yeah, specific for the bottom line of price.
That's spot on. And I mean, it's something I've spoken about quite a bit on some of the other power talks. The fact of the matter is that energy costs are going up, but we have the ability to fix our cost per kilowatt hour. Yeah,
absolutely. And I see there is a question from Dave. Dave saying thanks for submitting that. I do believe that this presentation will be online towards the end of today or the end of this week.
Correct. Yeah, so that's a good question. So as with all our power talks, we will upload this to our YouTube channel. So the full presentation will be available.
100%. All right.
Cool. So guys, we'll give it another minute or so to see if there's any other questions that come through. But if not, yeah, it's been a pleasure to have everyone on here. And if there's more information that you want to acquire regarding the Freedom Won EMS, please reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to answer your questions. Yeah, and hopefully you guys are as excited about the solution as we are.